In a world where B2B SEO is getting ever more competitive, it's no longer enough to do what we've just always done. There's no two ways about it. SEOs are in charge of juggling a whole host of different activities. But the problem is, if you undertake all of these activities which are deemed best practice, then this could leave you really time and results poor. In this video, we're going to run through the 4 mistakes that we see companies implementing, which see their SEO campaigns deliver nothing more than a headache for every single person involved. So let's jump into it. The first thing I want to focus on is focusing too much on ranking average or even bad content. In B2B, it's no longer enough just to rank your content. If the content isn't informative, if it doesn't create demand for your product, if it doesn't educate the user, then there's literally 0 point in it being there. There's loads of great examples of this, and one of my personal favorites, which has actually converted me in the past at a B2B capacity, was from Analytics Mania. And if we type in cross-domain tracking into Google, we can find one of the top results being Analytics Mania. And within this, they go through every single angle and every single thing that I'd want to know around cross-domain tracking with helpful examples, use cases, walkthroughs, and as you can see here, it's very, very in detail. And I remember reading this and thinking, this person 100% knows what they're talking about. And if I was looking for someone to come in and advise on a cross-domain tracking strategy, or someone to sell me a course around this would be an absolute no-brainer for me. And ranking, yes, I could find him because of that, but if the content wasn't very good, I never would have bought anything off the company. The content was so helpful and so informative and actually solved what I was looking for, I was much more likely to get in contact and purchase. On the other hand, the company who ranks second for this query, it's actually a company that I clicked on as well. And we can see here it's okay, the content's okay, has a couple of scripts which allow us to cross-domain track, but it doesn't give me the full context of what I'm looking for. And very much I read this, thought, okay, a few tidbits here, but bounced straight off. I didn't acknowledge the brand in itself, and I would never have considered going further and potentially using one of their tools or services or whatever it is they offer. So you've got to think about it this way. If someone's not going to read that piece of content and you're not going to build credibility with them, or you're not going to educate them on how it is that your product fits in, or even just shows that you guys have expertise and can be trusted, then there's no point in the content ranking, because you've spent all that money and time ranking for that content just for that person to hard bounce and never think about your brand again. Another classic example of a company who's great at B2B marketing is Ahrefs. And if you type in something like SEO checklist or pretty much any term related to their product or service into Google, they appear. Great thing about this is it goes so into depth. There's everything you need to know from an SEO checklist setup. And the content here is so deep, so helpful. And if we actually start clicking Control Find and type in Ahrefs, we can see here there's 24 mentions on the page of Ahrefs. You can actually see, SEO checklist. Oh, you may need Ahrefs Webmaster Tools. Oh, you may need to use the indexability report from Ahrefs. Oh, the Ahrefs site audit. So what they've done is not only rank for this query, they've associated this query with a problem that their product solved, and they've offered so much value that we have so much trust and given them so much credibility for this content that we're so much more likely to go through and actually sign up for a trial of their software. If someone had just ranked for SEO checklist, and they're giving us a 10-point bullet list, even if they manage to rank number 1, there's no way on earth that we're going to be giving that person any sort of money or recognition. The question I always like to ask myself is, would I put money behind this? If I was going to pay thousands of pounds a month on Google Ads and guarantee this page and content being served to my target user, would I be happy to do that? If the answer is no, I wouldn't happily push paid traffic towards this, but I would happily get free traffic, then the result's probably going to be the same, that you're going to get 0 inquiries or 0 recognition or 0 trust in the bank from the person who's reading it. Isn't going to be enough for you guys to sustain a profitable SEO strategy. The second mistake we see companies make is putting way too much emphasis on technical SEO, especially in B2B. It's very tangible, and also it's something that is kind of a never-ending list of priorities which you can go through and fix, all the way from the mega urgent stuff all the way through to fixing alt tags, so it can take a long time to sell in. But the issue is, not all of that stuff is created equal. Now, don't get me wrong, technical SEO is very, very important, and you need to make sure that you have a solid foundation of your website. But from an ongoing perspective, technical SEO is more campaign work and setting you up in a great stead. and then moving forward, best practice have been implemented, especially on a brochure site for B2B. Highly complex e-commerce sites may vary slightly, but even then I still feel like there's a lot of emphasis put on technical and not enough on the stuff that actually moves the needle in the longer term. From a technical perspective, anything from crawling, rendering and indexing is highly important, and also looking at the things like your core web vitals, not necessarily as a direct ranking factor, but more from a user experience and quality of build factor of your website. From a crawling, rendering, indexing perspective, it's probably worth going over and looking at your search console to go and see how Google sees your site. So we can see view crawl page. This is exactly how Google sees your page. So if I want to go in here and type in PPC or pay per click, I can see that, for example, pay per click on my title page here, pay-per-click advertising down here. Let's go and make sure this section here is being picked up by Google. We've got H3, pay-per-click. Again, we can make sure that all the elements of our page are actually coming through and Google can read it properly. If there's any JavaScript on your page or any issues which may be questionable whether Google or not can read them, this report here is really a good place to start to make sure that it can be crawled and rendered properly, and then ultimately you can see if your page has been indexed as well, which you can see right here. The other bits, like I mentioned, were the core web vitals. You can either look in your search console or use a tool like GTmetrix. With GTmetrix, I like to set a few different parameters. So let's set it from the United Kingdom, or let's set it from London. I like to set it usually using, let's use the Apple iPhone. And then let's take just a fast broadband, which is typical for what we're being, and let's put in the social media site. Okay, and it gives you performance here, and it gives you a grade of how well your site's performing and the structure of your site, and it'll give you all the information down here, the things you want to be looking at. For example, for large contentful paint, it shows you how long it takes for the largest element on your page to load, which is normally the hero image. Total blocking time is ultimately how long it takes for all of your HTTP requests above your page to load before the rest of your content happens. So you may have too many external scripts or whatever it may look like, so it's worth looking into. Again, an area which is put in orange here, which is something that we could potentially look into, but again, diminishing returns after a certain point, so I wouldn't worry too much about this. And cumulative layout shift, ultimately that's in very short terms how much something slides around when you load a page. So you can see it in a lot of page builders, like Elementor, for example, will have a bit of CLS built in. I won't get too much into the custom build versus page builder argument today. We haven't seen many correlations between core web vitals and the actual impact of someone's rankings, but this is more user signals. So we want it to load fast. We want them to make sure they have that ability to see content quickly, that it loads quickly, and that it doesn't move around, so it shows that it's a good quality website. Technical shouldn't be something that you focus 99% of your energy on every month, because you can drain a lot of resource fixing all your alt tags and everything else within your site and actually not get that much return from it. Technical SEO, especially in B2B, is more around campaign working, setting up a solid foundation. There are some really important bits, including things I haven't gone into today, like the likes of internal linking and a few other bits. We have an SEO ebook, a B2B SEO ebook on our website if you want to go and download it and see the full list of stuff that you can go and implement. But again, if someone's looking at just doing technical SEO for the space of a year in isolation with nothing else, then I'm going to say it's very quickly going to start having diminishing returns, and you're much better suited on focusing on other areas within your SEO strategy rather than just purely technical for the sake of doing SEO. Next mistake we see B2B companies rushing into sometimes is the fact that they just have an idea of a keyword they want to rank for. They've had it in their head, or it's been mentioned in a management meeting, and they say, if we can rank for this keyword, this is completely going to change the trajectory of our business. The issue with this is if someone spends 6 to 12 months ranking for a highly competitive cluster of keywords, they get to the top, they start getting traffic through the page, they then don't get any leads off the back of it, questions start being asked. And this is something that's very common, especially in B2B, because it hasn't got massively high search volumes a lot of the time. So even then it may take you a few months to work out that the query doesn't have the right intent that you thought it did. Now, what we found is a really good way of testing intent would be spending some time creating a Google and Bing ads campaign, testing those keywords, testing the ad copy, testing those landing pages. And if you can get a really good ROI off the back of bidding for these queries and a really good throughput of leads and return on investments off the back of that campaign, that's when we should say that you can use that data to really expedite your SEO learnings, because rather than spending 6-12 months ranking for a keyword, then realizing it doesn't convert and then pivoting, you can use the data from your other search campaigns or your paid search campaigns to then use that to say we can be pretty sure this is going to work for us if we're going to rank for it organically as well. Better still, you can monopolize the SERP and appear in the paid search as well as the organic search, and the sum in that respect is better than its parts because the credibility is extremely high if you're in the paid and the organic. We recently went in depth in a video of how you can create a blended report. This blended report takes your Google Ads keyword data and the conversions off the back of those keywords, and then actually blends it with the position your organic queries are ranking within the SERPs as well. So what we can see is if this query is getting a really good return on investment from a conversion perspective and a revenue perspective, we can say we know this query is currently ranking on page 3 organically. This should be our priority on the organic search side of things, to really start trying to go after this query or this cluster to make sure that we're ranking organically for these terms, because they're really high converting from Google Ads. I'll link to that video at the end of show you how you can create that blended report within Google Data Studio, or Looker Studio as it's called now. So finally, point 4, companies as part of their SEO campaign a lot of the time don't consider the impact of going omni-channel. A lot of the time, even if your content's great, even if the intent is completely aligned with what it is that you offer, 95% at least of companies aren't going to buy and have that direct response lead straight off the bat. So if you're just letting them leave your website and you're not trying to get into another touch point with them further down the line, you could be leaving a lot of money on the table. If we see this report here, this is quite typical in analytics to show that multi-touch point is hugely common in B2B, and there's data to show that it takes anywhere between 8 and 16 touch points before someone actually raises their hand and says, you know what, I could be interested in this product or service. It's true, depending on the intent of query, it may be direct response, and we can definitely measure that. But if we're not turning it into an omni-channel campaign and saying that anyone who types a query in then lands on our website, and we're not following them around for the next 180 days at different levels of frequency depending on the intent, then we're going to be leaving, like I said, money on the table. The second way you can be using omni-channel is by using the types of campaigns, for example, LinkedIn ads, where you can really closely target your ICP or your ideal customer profile. And when that person then sees your ads for, a long period of time, then goes onto Google and then types in a unbranded query and then sees your product page, they're more likely to come through, click on that page and convert on your website than a company they hadn't seen or heard of before. Google's first page algorithm loves a high click-through rate. So if we can get people to click on your ranking, if it's in position 4 or 5, it's being clicked on more regularly from your ICP than the people that are sitting above you in Google search, then there's a big chance you guys are going to start getting served above these companies, even if they've got a much larger domain authority. It shouldn't be done in isolation because it's ultimately going to be peaks and troughs rather than creating that flywheel of a marketing machine, which we're trying to create here. I hope you found that useful. As promised, here's a link to that video which shows you the PPC and Google Ads blended report. Any questions, whack them in the comments below. Hope you found this useful. Have a great week, guys, and speak to you very soon.